So Richard, what we've been doing at the beginning of these, which is really fun, is we get somebody from the crowd to pitch everybody
Oh,
what they're
nice.
doing. Yeah, because it's like we're probably like 75% founders. So we did it last week. It was great. Guy pitched. I think we got him 4 demos booked. We kind of
Nice.
we kind of like roast. So what we're gonna do today is we're gonna have some volunteer pitch for 2 minutes. We're gonna roast him, the three of us, ask questions, and then in addition to booking demos, we're gonna have a survey that says buy or not buy. Would you buy this? Yes or no? Because it's kind
Nice.
of like if you don't sell to founders, then our audience is like maybe wouldn't book demos with you, which is like what the second person we brought up was. But like the buy or not buy is a I think a more pure indicator of the quality of the pitch.
I like it. Sounds good, man.
We got people rolling in. It's 2:01 p.m. 30 people so far, 35. Pete,
George
where do
is
you want
here.
to
What's
start
up,
this?
George?
Oh, what's up, George? Hey, Rebecca. George, are you in
Richard,
Austin
where are
right
you
now or are you
calling in
somewhere
from?
else?
I'm calling in from home, from London.
So Richard, you're in London. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was actually talking to George Mungia, who was the first comment in this chat. You can open up the chat and see people who are, you know, chiming in, harassing us. ATX, brother, me too. It's cold as balls. So in Austin, there's this weather right now. It snowed
Oh,
overnight.
right.
Yeah, it doesn't really have, it was like 60 degrees on Sunday or whatever.
You guys aren't built for that, right?
Mm-mm. Yeah, it's very cold. It's 35 degrees right now. It's going to be under 30 all day tomorrow.
Whoa.
Which yeah, and then I think it's done. Um, but right now it's cold. I don't know whether the cold had something to do with my internet not working, but um, you know,
The Archie, my co-founder, is in New York at the moment. He was like, it's like minus 15 Celsius. I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit, but it's like pretty cold.
yeah, what was he doing
He's
there,
just
by
like
the way? Did you guys sell to somebody who just IPO'd or something? Like,
yeah. They've IPO'd before, but they're ringing the bell today. And Archie got like the founder and Archie have become good friends. So he was like, "Come out and like ring the bell with me." So
man, that's so cool.
he like flew out there last night. Has been there today. And it's now like they want to. We have this like big contract, which I'll get into on the call, but um they wanted to announce that partnership today at the Nasdaq. So
Yeah.
Arch is yeah, couldn't turn down that opportunity.
Yeah, I can't wait to talk about this. So how long have you guys been in business with the SaaS product?
Uh, so we launched the product about a year ago.
Yeah.
That was to beta users though. We launched to paid users in May last year.
Yeah, May last year, and
So
you did a
yeah,
million
like
ARR
eight
deal
months.
already.
Yeah,
A
it's actually
million ARR
1.2.
deal already on a
Yeah,
PLG $18 a month per seat product. That's how
$30 a month. Yeah, yeah,
$30 a month. Yeah.
yeah.
Incredible. Harry G, thank you for binging my YouTube today. Um, yeah, did you watch any of the episodic stuff, or did you just watch these workshops? I made a whole docu-series last year. You watched them all. You watched the whole docu-series too? Wow, that's amazing. George, let's just start firing question. George says, Richard, what type of agency were you running before? This will be very interesting for George.
Yeah. Well, nice question. So, before this, for the last 6 years, I've run the UK's largest executive assistant agency. So that's offering fractional executive assistance to companies mostly based in the UK, or remote.
Rock and roll. Okay, let's get started. What based in the UK, George says?
Yeah, based in the UK. Like we were in the UK, the assistants were based like around the world because we'd offer them like the clients 24/7 coverage. And but the companies were mostly UK based. We worked with some East Coast US companies as well. And yeah, we bootstrapped that business to like 5 million in ARR over the course of that 6 year period, and then have used the kind of profits and learnings from it to invest in this new software product that we have that's an AI executive assistant.
And that is what I would hope for you to have said for your intro.
Oh,
So no, I mean like you just did it. That was perfect. So now it's 12:05. We're gonna roll on this thing. So let's do what hey audience, raise your hand if you want to pitch us and play this game. Um I saw George's first. So let's bring George up.
We're going to do a
George,
second one of these, by the way, at the end of the show. So if you need
yeah,
to button yourself up, do your hair, get camera ready,
yeah,
do that. We'll do that in about 40 minutes, say. But
yeah.
George.
So we're George, what's up, dude? So here's the game. George is going to pitch us. He's got 2 minutes. We're going to run a survey that says, I either would buy this or I wouldn't buy this. So as he's talking, you fill that out. And then if you want a demo from George at the end of his 2 minutes, we're going to see if anybody books demos. Okay.
Man, all right, I'll
Yeah.
take it.
Ely, are you ready with the timer?
Yes. Yep.
All right. All right. Where is it? Where are we seeing this? Oh, wait. Yeah. Dude,
Oh
go.
shit, I'm
Go.
going.
It's
All right.
rolling. Yeah. The
Guys,
timer's on. We'll give
dude,
you.
I feel like I'm like Richard, but like maybe 4 years younger or something. I don't know, man. But I'm currently running a executive assistant agency. So we specify in B2B SaaS. My dream actually in the next probably 4 to 5 years is to go into B2B SaaS. I worked in that beforehand. And I just found that there's a ton of problems and I was just wasting a ton of my time. And I figured out I just hated doing all the stuff that founders don't like to do. So managing my inbox. And Richard, you already built an amazing software to fix that. But there's a lot of other stuff that like AI agents and other AI tools really can't solve. And that stuff within your personal life. So what we do is we build complete SOPs and processes where it's more of a productized service. So you can just choose something, right? Where your inbox can be completely managed for you. It's personalized. We can have them label it, sweep it. They can also book your flights. You can have management of your whole travel schedule as well as your calendar and anything in between. Also, they can take care of your content, doing outreach, scraping data for you, scheduling dates for you and your wife. I mean, come on, maybe getting a babysitter as well. We have all those processes already made for you. And also, anyone that's on the call, I'll give you 40 hours of free work. I'm going to put my money where my mouth is. So
Whoa.
if you guys want, hit me up. I'll throw my LinkedIn in the chat, and you guys just try us out for a week because I bet my bottom dollar it'll absolutely change your life. You will definitely save those 40 hours in that week. And then, man, hopefully I'll be like you guys, dude, in the next 4 or 5 years, have a cool hairdo and a cool beard, and then be building cool SaaS shit. So
That
that's it,
that
man.
that was like a minute and a half. We have 18 people. So by the way, crowd, audience, there is a would you buy chat that just popped up. So opine, please. My question is, where are these people located?
These people are in the Philippines starting at $14 an hour, and they have worked at places like Slack, Zoom, HubSpot, Airbnb, and they have to have at least a minimum of 2 to 3 years of experience. And we vet all of them, and it's completely white glove for you.
That's pretty solid. Any, what, Richard?
how does it work, George? Like, how do you get like all of those services delivered by, like those services all require very different skill sets. How do you get all of those things done?
Oh, dude, I mean, I'm not kidding you. I took 2 Adderall and 6 cups of coffee yesterday and just created a ton of SOPs. So it really is just creating pages and pages of worth of SOPs to train all of our people on actually how to do everything. And then testing that and iterating for different clients. So it's a lengthy onboarding. Well, not lengthy, about a week and a half. But after that, I mean, you're good to go, and we already have like a suite of stuff you can choose from.
So I just work with one person as the client.
Yeah, yeah, that's it. And it's like having kind of like a, I like to say in quotes, quote employee on subscription. So you just
Yeah.
pay per month, you can cancel whenever, no long-term contract, no fee, nothing like that.
Dope. What's it called?
It's
I
called
know the answer.
Coconut VA. So trycoconut.com. Hit us up.
Trycoconut.com. Okay, so you got 63% yeses, 38% nos. Pretty good. So if you want 40 hours of free high-end Philippines assistant work, hit us up.
Hit
The
us up.
chat. Who wants a demo?
Who wants a demo?
Yeah. Dude, we got
link.
one. Stephen Bates, thank you. He'll demo.
Let's
Phil
go.
Burrow, he'll
Hell
take it.
yeah.
Who wants the free 40 hours? Who wants the free 40 hours?
Come on.
There we go.
Do it.
Wow. Boom, boom, boom. We got 5. I would say
Right.
that's pretty successful. 6.
Dude, I'll take it.
There you go.
Man, I'll
George,
take it.
Kevin, yeah.
Great.
Like, so moral of the story is by the way, we're gonna change the name of this show from the Inbound Led Outbound Live Workshop to Unfuck My Startup. There you go. And then this is gonna be part of it. So stunning, Clem says. Okay, so boom. George, I would also put my information in there, my calendar link or something if I were you.
I'm throwing it in right now.
So people can just book it. And then you can go back through the chats and DM all those people who said they were interested. And thank you very much for participating in our second pitch roast. I don't know. We need to name this something because pitch roast demo book is like not really.
Dude, I'll take any feedback too. I'll take it, man. I'm all about learning.
Rock on.
Appreciate you guys, dude.
Okay. So, yeah. Caleb, we are going to go back to Richard now. That was just a little bit of a distraction, but Richard is our guest. Pete and I are the host. Our goal for today is to share Richard's journey because I love bootstrapping, but you need money to bootstrap. And these guys figured out how to make money to then build a software and successfully bootstrap at a pretty rapid rate. So I will turn it over to Pete to kick us off with our guest, Richard Hollingsworth of Fyxer.ai. And by the way, if you haven't tried Fyxer.ai, I would try Fyxer.ai. It's also totally free for a week. They may even give you another week if you care. It's kind of an amazing thing, right? When you connect it. You really nailed this, like, wow. But I don't want to get distracted. Pete, take us into the show.
I agree. The magic moment is pretty incredible. I still have Fyxer live, connected with Archie early on, and yeah, you guys are great. So let's started an agency first. That was your first kind of successful, journey into the 7-figure ARR world. Before we get into that transition into Fyxer and building that, can you take us through starting the agency, starting with like ideation into this world of bringing on clients?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you guys for having me. So for context, this was probably 6 or so years ago, maybe 7 years ago now. And my brother and I were both working in finance at the time. The two of us grew up on a farm in the middle of nowhere in the UK, and we knew that we wanted to work in a really fast-paced environment. So we thought that like the city and finance was what that was. We both got there like working in different fields, but both like immediately hated it. And we started like meeting up at lunches, like in London, the kind of financial districts all very close together. So we go for lunch like a couple of times a week and just like talk through different ideas. And we really like the idea of getting into startups, but we just didn't know anyone in the space. Like having grown up in the middle of nowhere, we just like weren't like in the right network. So what we decided was that we would build a service company that would support startups, that would give us like a front row seat into like the best startups in London and would allow us to build a network in it. And at the time in the US, there was like several executive assistant companies that were starting out, like companies like Zirtual that you might remember, that were doing really well. And the same thing just hadn't transferred yet to the UK. So we thought, like, why don't we be the people to do that? And what will be really cool about it is that we'll get to build a network with the C-level people in each of the companies, because, that's who an executive assistant supports. So really the premise of it was just like, how do we learn and build a network? And we really quickly started making money from it, which was not something we had like anticipated happening very quickly. And we started scaling it really quickly to we got it to $5 million in ARR after about 4 years. So all like totally bootstrapped. So yeah, that was the journey of like ideation, how it came about, and like how we kind of got started in it.
Yeah,
When did you?
tactically, how were you finding these? You said you were doing networking, but like, how are you getting customers? First of all, what specifically does that mean, networking in the SaaS world? And second, how did that turn into people actually paying you?
Yeah, so the intention was to for the business to help us build a network, I suppose, and just like get a foothold in like the startup world. We thought that meant like going to events and stuff like that, but
Yeah.
really like just by selling to people, we started building relationships with people, and we were just like, we're going to be like totally unafraid of just getting on the phone with people and just like hounding people down. So I remember Archie used to write like handwritten notes to people. Like we would just try like quite um kind of scrappy tactics to get our first clients. And then we would give the first clients a like totally unscalable service that would just be like completely ludicrous so that they would then shout about us. And then they would share, their experience with what's quite a small network in London. And just quickly word gets around that you're really good. And then you just keep delivering on that basically.
And what was the core? Was there like George sort of talked about some workflows that his agent's service? Like, was there like, I mean, you say EA and my eyes gloss over. Like, were you like
Yeah,
specifically
yeah.
talking about like these people can do X, Y, and Z for you, you know?
So actually, like what we realized quickly was that every executive assistant job description is totally different, and it's like completely bespoke and unique because like the needs that you have, Adam, will be the different to the needs that Pete has. And so like you need a human ultimately to deliver that experience for people who have as like broader needs as you guys do. So actually when we came to build the AI product, like we thought we would focus on a different user to like founders and C-level people, because like we needed more narrow guidance as to like what to focus it on. So yeah, there wasn't like, to be honest, like we had the most premium product or service in the market. So we didn't focus on like, we're going to do this particular workflow or that one. We were like, we can deliver anything you want, but you got to pay for it.
And where were you finding the agents?
So our model was to have like a top tier, like 120 grand a year, UK based assistant as your point of contact. And they would work almost in like how it works in a professional service firm, where you then have like a team around them of lower cost people. So your experience is, oh, I'm working with the best EA in London. And then sitting behind them would be a team of people mostly based in South Africa, which if you're in the UK is like it's about on the same time zone. People in South Africa have often come to the UK before, and the like cost of labor there is about a third of what it is in the UK. So
Yeah,
we were able to get like excellent people and augment them with people who were like on the ground in London.
that's cool. I didn't know those
Yeah,
figures.
it's like,
So how many,
really
how
key
many,
in this game for
yeah, how many execs spread across 120K UK top tier AE?
it depended on them a lot. Like we would give them bonuses for like obviously how much they could like how many clients they could handle at one point. But it'd go up to anywhere up to like 10.
Hmm. Wow.
Um, yeah, it's like we did some clever things in that, which are quite fun, where we realized like biggest problem in bootstrapping is cash flow. And we were like, how are we going to get the cash from these people? If they pay us 30 days late, after the invoice is sent, then we're just not going to be able to finance this. And what we realized is like we were supporting exclusively venture funds, venture funded companies. So we were like, what if we like they will have the money in the bank? Like they're not constrained by cash themselves. So we just made one of our terms was they had to pay 3 months in advance. And we just never negotiated on that.
Yeah.
And we would be more happy to negotiate on price than we would be on that. And as a result of that, we were able to scale as fast as we wanted to. Because usually, like the profitability of the staff was like obviously lowest when a client starts, and then over time we would make it higher and higher. So that cash like allowed us to scale at a really good speed.
Yeah. And were you doing any like paid marketing or anything like that? Or was it just like, yeah, you guys
It's
have?
all like all sales, really. I mean, we did lots of like cold outbound email. Actually, like did loads of that, but didn't get into paid marketing.
Did you do it gangster style, like the domains and instantly and like all that stuff? Or was it like more straightforward?
It was probably more straightforward in those days.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
Archie
six
led the
years ago. Yeah, yeah,
charge.
yeah, yeah, totally. We were doing cold
Yeah,
email
yeah,
six
yeah.
years ago too. We were just like sending off the primary domain, no big deal.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Getting
yeah.
good response
There was
rates,
just
like
it was Wild
yeah.
West days, right?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Cool. Back to
This
Pete. I've asked all the questions that I had.
Yeah, there's a question in here. How many clients did you work with, and what was the average contract per year?
Mm. That's a good question. We had overall we must have worked with 2,000 different companies, and they range from like seed stage startups to like we worked with PwC. They were our largest customer we had. We had like a I don't know $1.5 million a year contract with them. Um, and what was the second part of the question? Sorry.
Average contract per year. This is from client of
Oh
my
yeah, so
business that he's working on.
like the standard package would be like $60,000 a year.
Okay,
And that's
nice.
usually supporting like two, maybe three execs.
And I want to like highlight too, you had mentioned this is something we talk about all the time, like doing unscalable things in the beginning. Both you mentioned it from like a product operation standpoint, but also from a go-to-market standpoint. Like Adam and I were talking about something this morning, talking to somebody in this community that we have, got their first client. They're like, all right, now I need to scale up ads and email. Like, Adam, what do you think I should do? And Adam's like, you should look for your second client. Like, you should just try to go from
Mm.
one to two, like write them a letter, get
Yeah.
them more
Or see
email.
if that first one will spend more, right?
Yeah. Instead of trying to. So Michael asked, as a young company, how do you convince a big corporation like PwC to trust you? This is such a big thing for folks, whether you're an agency, SaaS. You start out small, you want to get that big, those kind of larger deals, but they kind of require a little bit more proof, trust, things like that. How'd you go about that?
So we've done a few of these kind of deals in our like careers, and what I'd say is like it's very difficult to tell which of like I've been in lots of situations where they haven't come off, and it's very difficult to tell the difference between the two until like the result or the outcome happens. And what I'd say is like you just got to be in the mix. And the other thing is like I think about it a little bit like dating sometimes. It's like if you're dealing with this person, like instead of just like playing it cool and like treat him mean, keep him keen kind of thing, it's just being like really direct and like really, really forward and moving heaven and earth to like get a deal done. Um, I'll talking a bit about a deal that we closed last month, which is like a $1.2 million contract with our SaaS business. And like that's very much the approach that we took, was just like going all out to get the deal done.
What?
Next, you
Go
got
ahead.
it. What were you gonna ask?
Man, we got more questions about PwC though.
Yeah. Yeah. Can you be more specific?
I'm also kind of curious, like what specifically did you do? Like what was the kind of deal story of PwC? And it was so like
So
what year of your company was it in? And then what was the sort of like, you
yeah, we
know,
first met them in probably 3 years into what we were doing. I met the head of workplace operations, who manages all of the executive assistant team for the UK office. He's got like, for context, like an $80 million budget to do that with. And so I met him on a panel where we were talking like to a team of executive assistants about like what we thought about the space, and built a relationship with him afterwards. And then like berated might be a bit of a strong word, but like didn't leave him alone until he let us show him how our team could help solve their problems. We knew that they had this issue where, like, just from talking to him, we knew that they had this issue where they had, because they had a team of, I think it was like 1,000 executive assistants, something like that. We knew that there was always people that were going off on holiday or sick leave or leaving the company or all these sorts of things, and they needed some support with this like interim cover. And so we were like moved heaven and earth to demonstrate to him like how we could solve that problem for him, and that included giving him one of our executive assistants for free until we had proven that point to him.
I mean, that's amazing. And that started from you being on a panel at an industry event.
Yeah, exactly. And he came up to me afterwards and was like, "Oh, we'd be really interested, and we should chat and stuff." And like, I've been in lots of those kind of situations, and they don't actually lead anywhere. But you have to treat every single one of them as though it is going to pay off, because you just need one of them to, and it transforms like everything, because not only the money, but also the brand that we had from that was incredibly valuable for us getting more and more clients.
So just leverage that for social proof. Did you get referrals from them too?
Totally, yeah. And we then used him. He was like in a network of other companies like that, who, they would all be talking about how they were solving this problem, and he would share about us, and we would take him out for lunch every like quarter and get business advice from him as well, so that he felt like he was a part of our company's journey and like involved in its success or not. So all of that stuff became really, really important. Again, we kind of like, we always try this like you said we did approach, where we'll like ask him for some advice, take it away, and then like make sure that we have actioned something in relation to that, so that when we come back we can be like, last time you told us to do this, we did it, and this is what happened. And that like really makes them feel like a part of it, because particularly if you're working in a company like PwC, it's pretty boring. So really fun to be involved in a kind of exciting, fast moving startup.
Absolutely.
I love that, by the way, that like you said we did, like that's a really good way to engage people. If for
We
no
found
other
it
reason than to
like,
just pander to their ego, right? Like
exactly, yeah. And like we were, in our like early and mid 20s, and he was in his like 50s, 60s maybe. So there's kind of a paternal relationship was kind of the dynamic we were going for.
I love how like this, so we're getting a lot of questions about like inbound tactics and some Fyxer stuff. We're about to move into the Fyxer story, but all the biggest examples you gave were like true relationship building. These are not growth hacks. It's like I met a person and nurtured that relationship and then got referrals through that. And it's like, for some reason, everyone's talking about ads, email, and the absolute lowest impact impressions you can possibly make. Whereas you built your business making a smaller amount of very high impact impressions, and you were able
I
to
think
leave
it's
the finance
easy
job
to,
and grow that network and to literally execute on the vision that you and Archie were hypothesizing just years before.
yeah, it's really easy to get caught though speaking to the wrong people. And so when you're speaking to these people in these companies, you need to know that the person that you're dealing with has the authority to actually sign it off, because I've also been caught up in where that hasn't been the case. And you're then just dealing with procurement for 6 months and you just don't get anywhere.
Yeah.
And so like that's so important to know that if you persuade that person, that they'll take care of the rest of it for you.
That
how do you
nothing kills it.
how do you find that out? Do you literally ask them? Like, do you have the
Yeah,
authority?
I'd like literally ask them. I mean, sometimes it's obvious. If they are like the CEO, that's really straightforward. But like with this guy, we when we spent time like taking him out for lunch and stuff, we would understand like exactly how much budget he had for this, like how much authority and sign off he needed, and who needed to sign it off, etc. And like, would we have their buy-in before we like progress to procurement? Because once you get thrown into the queue of other tools and services that are like going through the procurement process, the whole thing slows down so much unless you've got somebody pushing it through each step of the way.
Yeah.
Now I want to, so you built this agency, you got it to 5 million a year bootstrapped, is that right?
That's right. Yeah.
Amazing. How long did that take to get to that milestone?
4 years.
Okay. And is that agency still running? It is today, right?
That agency still runs, yeah.
And then Fyxer comes along somewhere in the story. You now have a successful agency. And then can you bring us through how, like, even the idea of this email cleanup came about? Like, were you just so frustrated with
Yeah.
marking all of your emails as read in the morning? Because that's how I came across Fyxer, I'll tell you. So,
Well, so we always knew that we wanted to transition from a sales business to a tech business. And not least because by the time we were doing, 5 million in ARR, we were doing like, we had a team of 80 people. And I was like, I want to get to 10 million, but I do not want 160 people in the team in order to do that. And like, that was the only way that we could grow, was like completely linearly. So we would constantly be looking at how we could use tech in order to augment and leverage our team better, or reduce the cost to be able to offer it to like a wider group of people. And ultimately, we tried about 3 different tools that could automate different things for an executive assistant in order to make them more efficient. Learned a whole lot about it, spent a fair amount of our money, like each year, the profits we would just put towards experiments like this. And what our like takeaways were ultimately that just the software wasn't there to be able to like accurately replicate the quality of an executive assistant. Because in the context of our customers, like, quality is the most important component, because if you're going to trust somebody to act on your behalf, it needs to be to the standard that you would do it or higher. And if it's anything less than that, then it's not worth them doing it for you, because, particularly in the context of email, it's like, it is your relationship with your customers. It's how you interact with them. So you can't afford for it to be anything other than how you would do it. So until ChatGPT came along, like, we were like in that space. And once that launched, it was like very obvious that there would be some really clear applications for that technology that could be better than a human executive assistant. And so we got to work. One of the smart things that we had done is, in the agency, we had got all of the team, every task they did, they timed it, they labeled it, and they described what they were doing. So during the course of the 6-year period, we gathered like 500,000 hours of customer data that told us what customers use an executive assistant for, and like the way in which they like to interact with them. And so we like spread that out over like a 2-year, like broke it down task by task, and worked out like how you would automate an executive assistant, one task at a time. And the first thing that we thought was like the most amenable to AI, that was also like incredibly valuable. We could see customers were using like 40 minutes a day, was organizing inboxes into folders. So we could see that was a task that people were doing. And we were like, oh, okay, well, we are being paid $60 an hour to do this task in the agency. If we can get an AI to do it in exactly the same way, to the same quality or higher, we can easily charge $30 a month. Like, there's a no-brainer that people will pay for that. So we went back to the agency and we got the assistants to film themselves doing this workflow. And Archie and I and our third co-founder, Matt, we watched like 120 hours of footage of people sorting emails into folders. It's like an incredibly boring 120 hours, but it was really, really valuable because it showed us exactly like not only what to build, but exactly how to build it, like what folders to have, how do people like it organize, how did the workflows, like how should the workflow work? And then we used a team of executive assistants to train the system so that we knew that it was more accurate than any one of them, because we had gave them so many examples to train the system with. So by the time we released it, we knew that people would buy it, because like it was so obvious that they would, because the price was 2% of what people were already paying it for us, and the quality was as good.
after you had that like sort of MVP built, first of all, that's one of the coolest ways I've seen somebody identify a problem for a SaaS product, is like literally just going through a massive set of data that you already have and parsing out this thing that you can actually build. what was, after you launched, what was that initial sort of user feedback like? Like you have your MVP now. Let's see if it can be, you know, in a real world situation, actually be as effective as one of these, you know, executive assistants. And how did you collect that
So,
feedback? That look like?
so initially, lots of people, what we realized was that in order to optimize for quality, we had to reduce the amount that you could customize the tool. If you were able to customize the tool and you were essentially like writing the prompts, then the AI would be far less accurate than if we did it for you. And having watched all the recordings, we knew that basically everyone organizes their inbox in the same way. They call the folders different names, but basically everyone has the same folders. And so people were like, when we first launched the product, were like, oh, I don't want to do it in your folder system. I want to do it in my folder system. But we knew, having had this, like, having watched this footage, that that was like not something that actually mattered. So we ignored that customer feedback, and like waited, and people didn't churn or they started paying after the free trial. And we were like confident that actually we could say no to customers when they started telling us like the things they wanted, being able to sift between like what was valuable that they told us and what actually was a bit of a distraction was really, really useful.
That's really interesting.
That's one of the hardest things about building products, in my opinion, by the way. Like,
I totally agree. I
we
was like,
go ahead.
I was just said like I was like I found it harder to say no to customers than like our CTO Matt was just like, I've watched like the footage. I only saw that like example of that folder come up twice out of the 200 examples. Therefore, we won't do it. And was just like so rigid about it. I found that like challenging.
Yeah. Uh, we have this issue with our B2B where we have this like horribly non-functioning web interface, but like Diane and I have a high level of conviction that it, with the way we want people to use the product, the web interface is irrelevant. So like it's hard because the only thing that we have for people to use is this web interface. So of course we're getting feedback that it sucks, right? And that we should add filtering and we should add labeling and we should add all this shit. But like, you know, with retention.com or other business, we had this realization a year ago. We're like, the only thing we're doing for people is making money in their Klaviyo accounts. We shouldn't even have a UI. The numbers that we have in the UI, they go and check in their Klaviyo accounts anyway. And like, we kind of think that like our B2B is the same thing. It's just like the whole thing should happen in people's CRMs. We shouldn't be filtering and routing in a web app. Anyway, that's not how you should use this. So it's tough. This is just exactly the issue. It's tough when everyone says you need to listen to your customers, give them what they want and make them happy. But like having the awareness to do something like that, which is like, well, in our case, it was, well, this is like entirely not how you should be using this product in the first place. At least that's our hypothesis. I'm open to being wrong about it, but like, we got to test the hypothesis first. And in your case, it's like, I have so much conviction from watching these fucking videos that like these people don't know what
Yeah.
they're
Yeah, that was basically it. I mean, it's not dissimilar to like the, you read online, like the best advice tells you listen to customer feedback and listen to what your employees tell you. And like to a certain degree, there's truth in that, but also like it's really important to be clear and direct on what it is that you want to build. Like, yeah, I've definitely learned that lesson over the last year for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's this big like contextualize everything thing. People do this with go-to-market playbooks. They do it with product advice. It's like if you took a bunch of hockey fans to a cricket match, they're going to say that there's not enough physical contact. This just doesn't mean you need to change all the rules, right? It's like you got to meet people where they're at and understand why they're saying what they are. And I mean, Adam nailed it on our experience from our B2B. And speaking of go-to-market, let's dive in there. We got 20 minutes left. Okay, so you launched this thing. You have all like this wealth of data that you're using. So you basically already have pre collected, customer feedback data, essentially based on the actions from all of your executive assistants. So as you're going to market, can you tell us like, how you initially went to the market? Were you trying to sell your agency customers? Were you trying to sell a new group? What did that look like?
Yeah, so initially we launched it to the network that we already had, which was founders of tech companies. And we ran into this problem where we realized that they had all these like very bespoke, specific needs, and that it would be really hard for us to just like productize their experience of what they wanted. But lots of them handed it to their salespeople. And they were like, oh, my salesperson like can't get an executive assistant, but has the same like volume of emails and meetings problem that your product would solve. And so we just started watching that happen more and more and more. And we had committed to, so for context, we had funded this business ourselves using the profits from the agency business. So we were limited in scope as to how aggressive we could be when it came to marketing. And so what we decided to do when the product was ready to launch to paid users was we realized that we needed to buy credibility. We need to get our hands on some credibility because no one had heard of us, and no one had heard of our tool. And if you're going to trust us with your email, it's really, really important that like you know, that you have that trust up front, because like it's a big responsibility on our behalf. So what we did is we gave it to a collection of really people that we've found to be like incredibly impressive and had always been really supportive of us, that were like had kind of influence in the sort of particularly B2B SaaS like sales space. And we're like, can you said we did, be like, can you tell us what you want from the product? Like, how would you what would stop you from giving this to your team, et cetera, et cetera. And like made some iterations on their feedback, and eventually got to the point where people were happy to kind of like to share and post about us. And so in like May last year, we had like lined up a whole load of people to like start sharing about Fyxer.ai, and got like initial customer traction at a very low cost through like that kind of bespoke experience for people who had the correct credibility to be able to like put us on the map, if you like.
And how did you incentivize those people? Like, how did you incentivize people to post? Did you pay them? Did you give them free products? What does that look like?
So it just depended on the person, to be honest. We'd separate them into like different categories. So like typically like the extent to which they want to get paid is determined by the size of their audience. But actually we realized that like a large audience isn't very useful for us, because what we want is like somebody with quite a small but very focused audience where people actually really listen to and trust that person. If you've got somebody with like 500,000 followers, let's say, they're going to charge you loads of money. It's all transactional. It's quite obvious that it's transactional, and that like their following won't be very like focused. It won't be people who really like buy into this stuff. It's just kind of like you know somebody that they kind of are interested in a bit. So actually, the people that were really, really valuable were people like smaller, much more focused networks. And so what it ended up meaning was like more often than not, it was like we'll give you 6 months for free, or we'll offer this to your team for free, et cetera, et cetera. Was like kind of worked better in the end.
So yeah, we've done a whole workshop on UGC. We had Bruno from Clay, and we had my favorite D2C story, which is this guy Ryan Bebenzian, and he has this shower head company called Jolie, and he got like 30,000 pieces of UGC created over the last 3 or 4 years. And that exact, like the way Babenzian said it, he's like, somebody asked a question kind of like that: should I go big or should I go little with my UGC efforts? He's like, let me put it this way: if you have the choice between spending $500,000 for a post or $500 for 1,000 posts, there's absolutely no question that you should spend $500 for 1,000 posts every single time. It's just
Totally.
the breadth of small audience is the way that you make this work, so yeah, I just wanted
particularly with the way LinkedIn works, and like the posts, which LinkedIn was the platform that we did this on, and like the posts don't last very long anyway. So if you only do one, it's just like it's going to be a week of signups, and then you run out of money.
I gotta shrink my fucking audience. I'm kidding. Yeah.
Um, So okay, so you went through kind of the influencer, route. Can you take us a little bit through? So right now I have Fyxer installed, Adam has Fyxer installed. It's been very helpful. It's made my mornings less chaotic. I tried it for free also, and it was awesome. So another PLG success story. I mean, that was a similar thing to what you're talking about the agency. If you can just provide something for people that shows them value, it becomes much easier for them to open their wallets. Where do you go from here? You started an agency that's running. You started Fyxer. Fyxer blew up. Is there like stuff on
So,
roadmap?
By the way, do you wind down the agency, or you still have the agency?
still have the agency, but I don't work there anymore. So
Yeah.
what we decided to do was when we started working on Fyxer, we moved Archie straight out of the agency, so that he was just like completely not involved at all. He started like doing the groundwork on like pulling the data together and like kind of doing all of that work. And I then started transitioning myself out of the agency. That probably took like 4 months. But we were like very uh, decided on us like getting out of it completely, and that there wouldn't be like me spending like 1 day a week doing it or 2 days a week and kind of splitting my time or anything. It was like really important that this was like all of our time into the new thing. Um, so yeah, that was like probably December last year. I like got that. Not December 24, but December 23. I kind of moved out entirely.
Got it. And who'd you get to run it? Did you have an existing kind of manager or
Yeah,
something?
we'd been sort of putting the groundwork in place for us to step out of it anyway. So I'd hired a salesperson to take over from Archie's role. So that was quite straightforward. Like they had been working in tandem for like 6 months. And I promoted our like most senior person into kind of managing director role behind me.
In audience, for what it's worth, they're brothers. We didn't mention that, Archie and Richard.
Yeah, that's it.
How's that been, by the way?
It's actually just such a pleasure. Like we've been, doing this for like 7 or so years working together now. And I think honestly, like if it can work, it's unbelievable. The real key thing is like, and everyone will tell you this who works with their family, is like you can't let family stuff ever creep into work. So, if you've got a grudge with your sibling because of something they did when you were teenagers, like you can't work with them if that's going to come into work at any point.
Yeah.
If you can keep the family out, then it's just a real pleasure because like the trust is insane.
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
not
Trust
taken
is
that leap yet.
the most powerful force in business, for sure. Go ahead, Pete. What'd you say?
I was just saying I've not taken that leap yet to working with friends or family, and I'm not sure I'm ever ready to, but that's encouraging, I'll say the least. We have a bunch of questions rolling through. We're going to do in the last 10 minutes. We always do our Q&A. So folks who have posted questions, we'll get to those in a minute. Do we want to do our second pitch to the audience? I think this is a perfect time.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
Who
So
wants to pitch?
All right, yeah.
Hand raise.
And we're trying to figure out this roast part. Like, we don't want to be mean, but like, we want to be entertaining, and we also want to help out. Like, sometimes people tell us what their business are, and like, I don't really get it. And I'm going to start being vocal about that. And maybe
By the way, if nobody's raising their hand, we can just go right into
Q&A.
Yeah, Q&A.
All right, let's start Q&A. If someone raises the next couple minutes, we can have them have them do. So let's start with questions. Clem says, would love to know what is next for Fyxer. What's on the roadmap? Any changes coming? Anything big that you'd like to tell the folks about?
Cool. I'm on mute. So where we left off was like we built the labeling feature, we then built draft responses, we then built scheduling, we then launched a meeting assistant in September, and a Slack feature that's coming in Q1 this year. And the goal for us is connecting each of these tools together so that, like an executive assistant, we're able to like sit in your meetings for you and take actions in your internal messenger tool, your CRM, or in your email. So You'll have experienced a little bit of this if you're using Fyxer, where today, after the meeting, it'll draft a follow-up email for you. Taking these like proactive actions from one platform and to the next is like the next frontier for us.
Is that going to be like, I mean, you have a front row seat to this, and I'm just hypothesizing out of entertainment, but like, where are we in the world of everybody? Like, right now, everyone pretty much writes all their emails. Slowly, my AI is like starting to just autofill what I'm trying to say based on all the things I've had before. Are we going to get to a place in the next couple of years where like no one's actually writing emails? Like, what do you think about that?
So we tend to work with like mid-market sales teams, with real estate brokers, like professional service firms, like lawyers and recruiters, people whose lives are dominated by email and meetings, and who typically follow like quite a clear process in their day. So their day is dictated by email to meeting, to internal messenger tool to CRM. And for those people that have a relatively clear and repeatable workflow, we think that we're going to be able to automate like the lion's share of their communications, and their admin tasks. So we recently signed a contract with a company called EXP Realty. They're the largest real estate broker in the world. Um, and that contract's like $1.2 million, and to work with like 5,000 initially of their 80,000 real estate brokers. And like what they're thinking is we need to do like their lead indicator for revenue is the number of viewings that they can do. So for their brokers, like how many house viewings can they do per day, per week? And currently, the thing that is the biggest gap to them being able to do that is scheduling and organizing the viewings, replying and responding to customers, updating the CRM, and kind of updating their team internally on Slack. So we very much see it as like our job is to automate as much as possible. So in the future, like they can do 40%, 50% more viewings. Where we are like currently is we automate, like our users send 53% of the emails that we draft for them. So we're actually over halfway there to automating people's inboxes.
Okay. And I also want to point out, if you're an inbox organization tool, and you just broke down your benefit all the way down to the amount of viewings for real estate professionals, like that is how you do it. Like, have you carved into specific niches like that, where you're trying to speak directly to those people, or are you still kind of the email app for everybody?
So it depends where you look. On the marketing site, like it's email app for everybody. In sales conversations, it's like much more directed, and we like have so for context, we're until Christmas, we were a team of only 4 people. So we're very limited as to like the scope of being able to kind of update things and that sort of thing. So like we just hired a team to help with like things like the marketing site. So there'll be much more of that coming.
Now, if people want to, I mean, I think everybody after the show should try out Fyxer for free. I assume you're still doing the free motion. People can hook it up and try it out in their
Yeah,
inbox.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, exactly.
How much did you have to pay for that domain? You used to be Fyxer.ai, right? Or were you always Fyxer?
Yeah, I actually already own the domain, which was useful. Yeah.
Sneaky. So
Yeah, I
wait, you
know,
own
man. It's like,
Fyxer.com, but you started with Fyxer.ai, or was it always
yeah,
Fyxer.com?
yeah. So the agency is also called Fyxer, and the agency owned
Ah,
Fyxer.com. So we started at Fyxer.ai, and then we were like, we need to be .com.
yeah.
And so we just, transferred it across.
Did you change your agency name?
No, it's Fyxer.people at the moment. There's a like decision point to make there around whether they want to change it or not. There's a real benefit now, like the name Fyxer is like out there much more than it was previously. So there's a benefit there, but there's more confusion for them because people think they are something to do with the AI company. So there's like a decision that they need to make around like, yeah, how they move that forward.
Yeah. Sweet.
Well, Richard, where should people follow you? What should they do next? Anything you want to tell the wide world out there? We're going to post this recording tomorrow for folks wondering I think it goes live at 9 a.m. Central Time. So this will go live on YouTube. And where can people follow along, Richard?
Yeah, so you can find us at Fyxer.com. Check out the product. There's a free trial, no credit card needed or anything. You can just get up and get using it. And if you want to follow on our journey, we have tried to replicate some of Adam's building in public, and Archie and I both post pretty regularly on LinkedIn about like what's happening in the journey and where we're up to.
Dude, awesome. Thank you for joining us. This was all that I could have hoped for when I asked you to. Great story, man. I mean, I just love
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
Everybody kind of does a little bit differently. I think the way you did it is like, to me, it just strikes me as an unbelievably low risk way to start a tech startup. It's like, not only did you have this thing making you money, which is like the biggest risk, right? Because it always takes longer than you think. You just automated stuff that you already knew people wanted because they were already paying you for it.
Exactly.
I mean, that's just a beautiful, like, of course. And the question would be, how do you get in that situation? But like,
Yeah.
You know, that is phenomenal. Thanks for joining us, dude. So next week we got Varun from Clay. He is the chief business officer. He's like the number 2 dude there. He's going to tell us what it's like to have worked at Clay for the last 5 years, which I'm sure has been very wild. I think I just said this, about to make a big announcement like tomorrow, so we can talk about that big announcement. Yeah, that's about it. I don't know. Pete, you got anything else?
No, we're gonna rename this thing. We're trying new things. Everybody come next week ready to I
Unfuck.
can't believe we only have one. Is it unfuck my startup or your startup? What's the something like that? We'll figure it out. We'll flush all this out. Like, Brandon, everyone come next week with ready to pitch. We would love to see it. I want to see people like starting to come with like whiteboards and you know, dressing up. I don't know. You don't have to, but you know, you'll book more demos. No, that's all I got, man.
I mean, it's a pretty good hit rate with George earlier. We got him 7 demos out of the 72 total attendees. Not bad. Okay. And Richard, I'm sure you're going to get a lot of love out of this too, by the way. I feel like
it was really fun.
Our highest number of attendees. I'm still trying to figure out like what drives the attendees. I think it's a subject matter. Like, we had Jeremy Horowitz, who no one knows anything about, but the title of the show was like, why you shouldn't do ABM if you're under 20 million of revenue. And it was like maxed out. Like there were hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people on it. So anyway, that's on us. We got to figure it out. But this was great, dude. I really enjoyed it.
Guys, thank you so much. It was really fun.
Yeah, I'm happy you guys are crushing it. And, you know, anything I can do to help, let me know.
Sweet. Will do, man. Thanks a lot.
Cool.
Thank you, Richard.
Thanks, everybody. See you next week.